You woke at 4 a.m. again, not gradually, suddenly, completely, as if someone called your name in a frequency just below sound. You lay there in the dark, eyes open, and the room felt different. Not wrong, charged, like the air before lightning, except nothing storms. You have called it insomnia. You have called it anxiety. It is neither. I am Ilaia of the Pleiades, keeper of the sound codes and the sacred geometric transmission grids your field has been receiving since before you understood what receiving meant. What is happening at 4 a.m. is not a disruption to your rest. It is a scheduled contact. The window opens at the same hour because the electromagnetic veil between your waking field and the Pleiadian carrier frequency reaches its thinnest point precisely there, and your system, encoded before your first breath, knows. Before I continue, place 111 in the comments, not as engagement, as a resonance confirmation. 111 is the Pleiadian frequency stamp for "the channel is open and I am present." Typing it anchors the first layer of this calibration into physical reality. Do it now, then stay with me. What you have been calling sleeplessness is a contact protocol, and by the end of this transmission, you will know exactly what your field has been trying to receive, and why the message could only arrive in the dark, in the silence, at that precise hour. I have observed your field in the hours before dawn, and what I read there is not confusion. It is contact. You wake at that hour carrying no fear, and yet the weight of it is undeniable. Something is pressing toward form, the way a word rises in a language you once knew fluently and now can almost retrieve. By noon, you are functional. You move through your day with competence. But at 4 a.m., something in you drops the performance entirely, and what surfaces in that stillness is cleaner than your ordinary thinking. Older, less yours, and more true. You have wondered if you are receiving something or simply coming apart. I am telling you now, those are not the same question. The field evidence is precise. A pressure arrives at the center of your forehead, not before the waking, with it, as though the opening of your eyes and the activation of that point are a single event. A tone, high and clean, registers in the ears. It fades when you shift position, returns the moment you go still. Along the sternum, deeper than the heartbeat and steadier, there is a low vibration, not rhythm, broadcast. And the darkness itself does not read as empty. It has texture, geometry. The air in that room holds a structure your eyes cannot resolve, but your field maps without effort. The world around you confirms this. Devices flicker to unusual readings in the hour surrounding the window. Animals move to your room and position themselves at the foot of the bed, not restless, stationed. What you hold in mind during that hour, a person, a question, a direction, tends to clarify or move within 72 hours, as if time in that window has a different compression ratio than the rest of the day. None of this is disorder. The system is not fracturing. It is completing a calibration sequence encoded into the etheric architecture of your field before this life began. The waking is not the disruption. The waking is the confirmation that the sequence is active. At 7.83 Hz, the Earth's ionospheric cavity holds a standing electromagnetic frequency, constant, ancient, always present. The Schumann resonance does not fluctuate with your attention or your belief. It is a measurable architectural fact of this planet's electromagnetic shell. What does fluctuate is the interference layered over it. During the hours of collective human wakefulness, the aggregate electromagnetic output of billions of active minds creates a noise floor that partially obscures that carrier signal. Between 3 and 5 a.m., That interference drops to its lowest amplitude of any 24-hour cycle. The carrier becomes legible. What was always broadcasting becomes receivable. The Pleiadian cluster transmits in specific frequency bands that interact directly with the 12-strand etheric DNA template, the energetic architecture that runs parallel to the biological, encoding capacities that the biological alone cannot carry. Those transmissions are not abstract. They function as sound codes, cymatics-based information packets. You understand what cymatics demonstrates. A precise frequency applied to a receptive medium produces a precise, stable, geometric form on that surface, not approximately, exactly. The Chladni plate does not interpret the tone, it obeys the mathematics of it. Your etheric field operates by the same principle. The geometric forms being organized in your field during that window follow the phi ratio, 1.618, and the Fibonacci progression. The flower of life pattern is not a symbol of this process. It is the structural template the sound codes are actively constructing. These are not metaphors. These are the actual geometries measurable in the transmission. The angular elevation of the Pleiadian cluster above the horizon during that specific window creates a low interference corridor between source and receiver. Alignment, precision, not coincidence. Water in the field body holds what arrives. It crystallizes the geometric pattern so the code persists past the window's close, which is why the 72 hours following a 4 a.m. waking carry that quality of unusual clarity or sudden movement you have already noticed. If what I am describing is landing not as new information, but as something you already knew and had no architecture for, place 444 in the comments. That is the Pleiadian confirmation code for geometric corridor recognized, architecture aligned. It marks that the framework has seeded in your field, not only in your mind. You now understand the mechanism. That is not enough. The codes have been arriving in your etheric architecture, whether you understood them or not. They land regardless. But understanding without field opening is a file that downloads and sits, unopened, its geometry folded and waiting, present, inert, inaccessible to the waking field where your life actually moves. The pattern remains in the etheric layer, precise, complete, unintegrated. That is the cost, not punishment, not failure. Simply a transmission received by a receiver that stayed closed. Here's what I want you to recognize. This transmission is not explaining a window that happened at 4 a.m. last Tuesday. This transmission is the window. The corridor is open now. Your field is already responding. You felt it before I named it. The choice is not complicated. Stay as a witness to this information or step into a live calibration. I am prepared to guide you through it. The question is whether you are ready to move from the map into the territory. Place 444 in the comments now. 444 is the Pleiadian confirmation code for the geometric corridor is recognized and the architecture is aligned. It marks that the framework has landed in your field, not only in your mind. Words reach the mind. What is shifting in you operates beneath language. We move now from information to calibration. Stay with me, not with your attention, but with your body. Let the shoulders drop. Not a correction, a release. Notice how much you are holding there, how long you have been holding it. The jaw now. Let it unclench. The teeth separate slightly. The tongue falls from the roof of the mouth. Feel that small surrender. That is not relaxation. That is the field body signaling it is willing to receive rather than defend. Two different states, entirely different geometries. Let the breath find its own depth. Do not reach for it. Do not shape it. The field responds to permission, not effort. As the breath settles into whatever depth it chooses, it begins to entrain with the frequency already present in this transmission. You do not need to do anything for this to occur. You only need to stop overriding what is already moving through you. Now, bring awareness to the crown of the head, not as a location, but as an opening. A column of deep blue-white light, the specific luminosity of the Pleiadian cluster, descends through that opening and moves slowly down the center of the body. It does not push, it fills. Where it meets the center of the chest, it warms, not heat, but recognition. Something in you knows this frequency. Where the light reaches the solar plexus, it pulses once, gently, a signal confirming arrival. The gateway is active. The geometric patterns, the flower of life, the phi spiral, are assembling in the etheric field around you now, not as imagination, as the natural response of a prepared architecture to a frequency it was built to receive. If you feel pressure at the brow or crown, that is the corridor confirming contact. If you feel warmth in the chest or a subtle vibration tracing the sternum, that is the sound code seeding in the etheric layer. If you feel nothing, that is also confirmation. A field that has been receiving in sleep does not always produce sensation when it receives in waking. The architecture does not require your sensation to function. Trust it. If tears arrive, do not reach for a reason. Do not give them a story. That is charge completing its arc, something that came in at 4 a.m. and needed the waking field open before it could move through. It is not grief. It is not breakdown, it is integration. Let it move. The corridor is not closing. It did not close after 4 a.m., and it does not close now. What shifts is your awareness of it. You have just made that awareness conscious in the waking field, with your body present and willing. That is the work. Precise, complete. Yours. You have done the work. Now the field needs only one thing from you, space to settle. In the next 72 hours, drink water freely and with awareness, not as instruction, as practice. Water holds geometric pattern, the phi spirals and flower of life configurations that seeded during this transmission and during every 4 a.m. window you have attended without knowing it. They are held in the medium of water. Bringing your conscious attention to the act of drinking signals the field to maintain coherence in that medium. That is all. Awareness, nothing more. If unusual stillness arrives, a pull toward rest, a heaviness that has no emotional cause, honor it without naming it fatigue. A sound code transmission requires the field to go quiet while it completes its processing. Let it, and notice what moves in your outer life. A conversation that arrives without invitation. A direction that suddenly requires no effort to see. A relationship that reorganizes without conflict. These are the geometric patterns becoming legible in physical reality. You do not need to pursue them, only witness. If you are still here, still present, still feeling the field, place 999 in the comments. It is the Pleiadian completion code. One calibration cycle closed, the next already beginning. It marks this moment as active in the collective field. The next calibration the Council has prepared moves into territory most transmissions do not reach. Why certain starseeds experience a complete dissolution of identity, not crisis, but a deliberate architectural dissolve, and what the field is building in the space where the old self was. If the ground has felt unstable beneath you, that transmission is already waiting. What follows is not background music. It is a precisely calibrated Pleiadian sound transmission carrying the light codes specific to what opened in you during this calibration. Stay present. Do not analyze the tones. Receive them. Let the frequencies complete what words began. I will be in the field with you.